Okay, this is the new Narex 8116 that we looked at earlier on. The backs on these and Ashley Isles are the only ones that I know of that are consistently produced with a hollow back. There may be others that manage that occasionally by accident, but these are the only guys that I'm aware of that are doing proper hollow back chisels. I'm starting off with a 100 micron film just to remove the worst of the grinding marks, and I'm going to lay the heel of the tool on first and then the tip. You always go that way round so you don't end up inadvertently creating a secondary bevel on the underside, which is the last thing you want. So we lay on the heel and then we just draw that back off the edge. I've just lubricated this with a little touch of Hone Right number 1. And very quickly start to remove the grinding marks from the underside of the tip of the chisel. A little more. You can see you start to get a blackening of the surface, which is how you know that there's something going on under there. This is a fairly broad chisel. I've selected this on purpose so that you can see how quick it is. A lot of people who try and demonstrate these things use very, very thin chisels, which sort of defeats the object of showing the speed. But I hope you can see there we're starting to get material removed behind the cutting edge and a lot less going on further up the chisel. Right, moving on, let's try the 40 micron lapping film, the blue. Same action on there, we're just going to draw the chisel off the edge of the film. This is just removing the scratches from the 100 micron and replacing them with finer ones. And we just repeat that process on the various grades. With these they've got a fairly distinct grinding pattern on the back, so you can almost hear when it's right because the sound smooths out. You don't get the vibration so much as the serrations go over the edge. That's looking good. I'm happy that that scratch pattern's been removed over the entire edge. Just a little bit more just to make sure we've got the centre of that done. For some reason the Narex ones tend to come out slightly concave rather, in the width of the chisel as well, so you'll find your grinding marks start to slide up the edge and you end up with a hollow centre, almost like a Japanese chisel, but very, very much finer. Let's go again onto the next grade down. This is 30 micron. 40, 30 and 5 are the grades that I tend to use for day-to-day work. If it's a particularly fine edge that you want to come up with, there's also 1 micron and 0.3 micron, which are incredibly fine. Generally I find that 5 micron is perfectly adequate. That's about equivalent to, it's just a little bit coarser than a 6000 grit Japanese water stone. So there is some advantage in going finer, but it's not massive. Okay, on to the finest one. Still laying the heel of the tool down first, then the tip, and just pulling that off the edge. Pull strokes only on lapping film, otherwise the tip has a tendency to dig in and tear the film. As long as you stick with that, you should be absolutely fine. You get months and months of use out of these sheets. It's very hard wearing stuff. And if you just give it a quick wipe over at the end to wipe off the Honite Gold or Camellia oil or whatever you're using as a lubricant. You can use anything on this. You'll find that you also take off any swarf, so you're back to a nice fresh cutting surface for the next time. Now, as you can see, that has given us a lovely polish just behind the tip. There we go. And that's all that we need to do. As soon as that surface extends across the full width of the cutting edge, that chisel is ready for work. We're just going to do a small secondary bevel on the other side. For that, I'm going to pop it in a honing guide. Okay, so I've set my projection for 30 degrees using a little mark on the corner of the bench. Just pop the wedge in there, and I think I'll turn this around just to make things easier. Okay, so starting off again on the 40, I'm just going to draw that back for a couple of 3 strokes. We do sometimes find with these Narex chisels that you get a little bit of steel at the very, very tip where it's a very thin section that hasn't quite taken properly in the hardening. So if you just hone out a little bit further, then that will get rid of that and you're into the bainite and everything's great from then on. Moving on to the 30 micron, you can see I'm only doing very few strokes on each. That's all it really needs. You're just trying to create a tiny little polished area just adjacent to the edge. It doesn't need to be massive. Give that a wipe off. There we go. Now hopefully you can see on there that we've just got a shiny line right along the very edge and nothing else done. So that's what we wanted. Just take this out. And now honing that secondary bevel along the very tip of the cutting edge is going to have created a little burr just on the back of the blade. On decent, properly hardened steel it'll be very, very tiny indeed. But I'm just going to place that off the edge of the finest lapping film and just draw it gently onto the edge there, just like that, and that will remove any remaining burr from the cutting edge. I've just popped a little bit of walnut in the vise here just to give you an example of how your chisel should cut once it's properly sharpened. It's very smooth, very accurate, and you should produce shavings. This is end-grain walnut, so it's reasonably soft. It's one of the trickier timbers to cut smoothly, but that's taking care of it, no problem at all.